Hey Facebook, happy Thursday. Coming to you live from DC today. As you can see in the background, there's they're packing up the room, but the last poster for Connecticut in the Capitol, which is winding up right now. I have just spent the last 2 days at an event organized by our senatorial delegation, Senators Murphy and Blumenthal, who put together a really fabulous set of panels for a group of leaders in some industry leaders, lobbyists for nonprofit groups, and elected leadership here to really, focus on problems as opposed to partisan politics, but try to solve things and bring people together. And the panelists that they put together, both senators and people working on policy in the Capitol, was incredibly powerful, and for me really highlighted. Our closing speaker was actually Senator Mitt Romney, who in his remarks noted that nothing actually gets passed here in D.C. if it doesn't have both Democrats and Republicans on it, and that's an important part for us to remember in an atmosphere which I think the media really heightens a lot of the partisanship here. There are certainly important differences, and we discussed those too, but an awful lot of middle ground is available if you're willing to look for it. And I just wanted to highlight a couple of things that we talked about that have real impact in the state and certainly in our rural district. And one of the so we talked about tariffs and trade in particular, and having just toured specialty minerals in the last few days in Canaan. And talking about first of all, looking at their business as a whole, which was fascinating, and I little plug to Jay Sams, thanks for organizing it and letting me really get a sense of all the machinery, including letting me ride on some pretty impressive equipment. But they, have to buy some of their raw materials from overseas, and so they are affected by tariffs, and how they make sure that they diversify their supply chain is pretty interesting. But as we work on with companies like that and on things like workforce development, what the atmosphere is for trade and tariffs is really important, because we have to know what we're targeting. So that was a really interesting conversation. We also had a conversation about technology and connectivity, and Senator Blumenthal, I think, in part highlighted the need to reach bipartisan solutions, which he is working on, for privacy on the internet. That's been a lot in the news. We also heard from some leaders with the FCC and the FTC about the FCC in particular about rural connectivity and 5G, and in particular we had a conversation coming out of that about how when there isn't access for certain rural communities like ours, 5G, whether you're for or against it, it may just leave us in the dust. So lots to work on in terms of making sure that our communities have access. One of the last panels we had was on healthcare, substance abuse, mental health, and in particular the Veterans Administration. And we learned about strongly bipartisan bill, the VA mission law, which is an acronym, which I will try to figure out before I write this up. But essentially, what it's making sure is that it is ensuring that veterans actually have access to the services that we say that they deserve and that we're trying to fund. In our rural area, I have had a number of calls from veterans who, are being asked to traipse all across the state in order to get the health care that they desperately need and deserve. And to say that we have it and yet provide it in a part of the state where it's not really accessible isn't really access. And so here at this, I was able to collect a series of cards of people who are really interested in working on this and in fact enacting or putting into place a bill that we've already passed to make sure that it's actually working for all of us. So I look forward to working on that going forward. And there's a lot of other things that we talked about here too. I'll try not to another bipartisan piece of legislation that we talked about in the voting realm was I believe it was even unanimous. It's been in the news recently to make hacking into voting machines illegal. Crazily, that was not a federal crime until that was passed. So there are lots of areas that we can work together to try to make the state and the nation a better place for all of us. And so on a more local note, I just want to also wish Mark Burdick and Karen Davenport a happy retirement. I went to their retirement party at Laurel Brook Farm in Canaan last weekend, I believe, and it was so impressive to see such a huge part of the community turn out to support these two fabulous teachers who have been such leaders of the ag program at Housatonic for so many years. And so many people, I had a lot of great conversations afterwards about following up about how to support agricultural education and what an important program that is, and look forward to working for that too. And have a great weekend. Thanks.